Welcome to Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. I am Al Marenton,
I'm Megan Hall.
and we are the hosts of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. What's on the agenda for today, Megan?
Today is very special. We're adding a new segment to our series where Al answers our community questions directly. And let me just tell you right now, this is a rare opportunity for you to be able to write your questions and have Al answer them directly. So please take advantage of it. Write your questions below. We have our top, let's say we have 6 that we're going to be answering today. And so, yeah, Al, you ready?
Yep, for sure.
Okay.
Let's get to it.
Let's do it. All right. So we have our first question from Intezam 9735. And their question is, can the oil be replicated with full spectrum CBD distillate mixed with terpenes and THC distillate? Because these are legal in my country and I can order them by mail and have it within 2 days. Given the punch of THC, this seems so much more affordable. I do have cancer, by the way. Can you elaborate?
Okay, so it seems like this, I'm assuming it's a gentleman, has cancer and he wants to get RSO, but it's not legal in his country. But for whatever reason, the CBD and THC distillates are, and terpenes, which are components of the RSO. And he wants to know that if he just gets those pieces and pieces everything together, will it have the same effect? And for whatever reason, he feels it's more affordable that way too. But the answer to it is it can't be replicated by piecing it together. RSO cannot be replicated by piecing the components together. And the reason being is it's a whole plant extraction with a specific solvent that extracts the maximum amount of nutrients from the plant. Okay, so there's like the cannabinoids, terpenes, isoflavones, flavonoids, and thousands of other phytonutrients that are present in the oil, and that cannot be replicated in the lab. But that being said, there are benefits to like distillates and isolates for THC and CBD, and they can be helpful for certain conditions, like what I call more minor conditions like anxiety, sleep, pain. That's actually one of the acronyms for CBD is sleep, pain, anxiety, SPA. Those are the top 3 things that it helps with. And that can be helped with isolates and distillates, okay? But the more hardcore conditions like my glaucoma, cancer, lupus, MS, etc., they need, for whatever reason, all of the components in the RSO. And like I said, it cannot be replicated in the lab. There's thousands of phytonutrients. There's the cannabinoids, like not just like the 3, 4, or 5 of them that they've isolated, in the lab, but there's over 113 of them. And then there's, like I said, the thousands of phytonutrients, dozens of terpenes and isoflavones and flavonoids. Like all that together is where the magic is. So in other words, you cannot replicate in the lab what nature has provided us.
Excellent. Okay. Our next question is from James Sonez 4044. And James asks, what number is a good return for 100 grams?
Okay, so that's a good question. Like how much of a return on RSO can you get from 100 grams of the material, like the flower, the buds? Okay, so 100 grams is just under a quarter pound. Like 112 grams is a quarter pound. So that's just under 4 ounces. So you would get about 10 to 15 grams of raw RSO from that. And so like with a pound of herbs, for instance, that's about 450 grams. And you would get 50 to 60 grams of the raw oil from that. That's a very good return, and what you can expect to have.
Great answer. So our next question is from Raiders74. And this is a 2-part question for you, Al. Does THC percent matter in the flower to make quality FECO? Or what THC percentage is best in flower for making RSO?
Okay, so the THC percent, it matters to a certain extent, but it doesn't matter as much as certain things like the type of cannabis, meaning like indica or sativa, like where it should be more of an indica dominant or just pure indica strain, and there is a specific range that I found that produces the most beneficial oil, the way that I extract over here at Movida. So what does matter, whether it's the plant has been over hybridized, or is more of like an heirloom variety where it hasn't been messed with, and it's more like a original, the way it was back in the day. And also like how it was grown, sun grown in the ground, in soil, how it was, dried, cured, extracted, etc. All those things have a much bigger say in how the oil is going to come out than the percentage. If you have like a nice heirloom variety strain and indica strain, they're going to generally be between 10% to 20% of THC in the flower, and that's the general range that I found is best. There's obviously in the dispensaries like flower that's 25%, 30% plus of THC, but that's flower and strains of cannabis that have been over hybridized to get to that. And when you try to get too much of one thing in there through over hybridization, like too much THC or CBD on the other end, then you're going to compromise other nutrients that may be in there and either have less of them or none of them. So it compromises the overall structure of the RSO by having those super high over hybridized strains. And then ones that are less than 10% are, they're not a quality, strain or whatever that was going to produce quality oil in any form. So you want to have at least 10%. That's what I found. So that 10 to 20% is where the heirloom variety generally lies for the THC, like the strains that we normally use here at Movida in the flower. And then as far as the high CBD version, so that was for the high THC version of the RSO. And for the high CBD version, we found that the hemp CBD plants that that were derived from cannabis plants that have more of that therapeutic benefit. That's number one that we search for. And then they would generally, the ones that we get over here at Movida have between 10 to 18% of CBD in them. I haven't really seen one that had more than 18% grown by the standards that we have. There are ones that exist out there, but they're like over hybridized and they're grown in different environments than we feel over here at Movida will give the proper oil. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Now, the second part to that question is, does the percentage of THC in the finished oil matter?
Yes, it definitely matters. So if it's too low, then then there's contaminants that could be in there, and that are most likely in there, right? Like, so if you have like a one that has cannabinoids or THC that's 40%, let's say, there's going to be a whole lot of other junk in there to fill the void of where those percentages of THC should have been. So it's too low, and contaminants are most likely present, including residual solvents, which, depending on which solvent you're using, could actually do harm and potentially kill you, right? And if you have too high of a percentage of cannabinoids, which would seem like a good thing, right? And most people, they strive for that, but it technically isn't a good thing to have too high of them, because like you just said earlier, with those over hybridized strains that have like in the flower, like 25, 30 plus percent, if you have too high of a percentage of the cannabinoids in the oil, then you're going to be missing some other components that would have been in the RSO. All right. So it could have been chlorophyll, flavonoids, terpenes, flavonoids, or any other phytonutrients. They're going to be missing because of there's so much cannabinoids in there.
Gotcha. So that I have a question then. So what is the optimal percentage of cannabinoids in the raw full extract cannabis oil?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So for the high THC RSO, what I've found over the years, for over a decade of doing this specific oil, is 62 to 72% THC in the oil. Like when you test it, the raw oil, it has 62 to 72% of THC, active THC in there, and then up to 10% of other cannabinoids. So there's like I just mentioned, there's like 113 plus cannabinoids. So there could be CBD, CBG, CBC, CBN inside of there, and all of those added up together can be like right around anywhere from usually like at least 3 or 4% up to about 10% in really quality oils. And then on the high CBD version, it's almost the same as that 62 to 72%, but it's a little bit lower. It's 60% to 70% of CBD, active CBD in the oil. And so active meaning the acid molecule has been taken off, of it, so it's been decarboxylated, and that's what makes the THC psychoactive. But CBD also has an acid molecule on it, so you could decarboxylate it as well, and even though it's not psychoactive, and there's 60 to 70% CBD, and then there's 4 other cannabinoids that we over here at Movida look for and must be present in the flower, and then must be present at certain percentages in the raw oil in order for us to carry it basically and utilize it for myself and for clients, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just the total cannabinoids, but there's 4 specific ones, which are there's a CBD actually, which is, so there's 5 cannabinoids that we look for. The CBD, which is that 60 to 70%, and then a minimum of 2% of CBG, CBC, CBN, and THC. Okay, so those 4 cannabinoids, there must be a minimum of 2% in the final raw oil. Okay, and naturally occurring. We can't, like if it's just under on certain ones, we can't add in from external like CBC or THC sources like an isolate to boost it back up. So it's a painstaking process for us to find that, but that's what we found actually makes it super therapeutically active, and what makes me able to actually see and overcome my glaucoma and my chronic pain, and my migraines. When we were just haphazardly doing it and just checking for certain percentages of the CBD and not paying attention to those other 4 cannabinoids, we would have like mixed results. It took like over 2 years, it took me 17 years to figure out the first extraction process, and then 2 more years to figure out that cannabinoid combination to get the beneficial results from the high CBD RSO. So, and I'm the only person, and we are the only company that I know that has this specific actual high CBD RSO and a true RSO that is high CBD. Other people, there are a few, there's a very small amount that say that they have it, but I've checked what they have, and it is not the real deal. Ours is. And so again, just to reiterate, high THC RSO should have 62 to 72% THC in it, and up to 10% other cannabinoids to be beneficial from what we have found. And then high CBD RSO is 60% to 70% of CBD, active CBD, and a minimum of 2% of the following: THC, CBC, CBG, and CBN.
Excellent. Thank you. Our next question is from Jaggerbush. I've never imagined that the intent was ever to do a full syringe at a time. Can you elaborate?
Okay, so what at Jaggerbush is talking about is doing a full syringe, meaning the 1 gram syringe, not a 10-gram syringe or something like that, but a 1 gram syringe is 1,000 milligrams, and that's a lot to do at one time for sure. And he's saying he can't imagine that was the actual goal, and that's the goal for people with more hardcore conditions. That is not the goal for everybody. All right. So there are some people, like a few people that do the full gram a day, that don't have hardcore conditions, but they're just like cannabis lovers and they can handle that, and they're seasoned veterans, that have been around cannabis forever. But for the general population, the people that do the full gram, those are people that have hardcore conditions. The most popular being cancer, but but other things as well. Like MS, lupus, glaucoma, like I have, etc. So we need that gram a day. Work up to that obviously, and then do the gram a day for a period of time. So that's not something that's meant to be done forever either, because it's a lot to take, number one, and then there's a cost factor involved as well. So that high dose is taken generally for a short window of time, and it's usually about 45 to 90 days once you've worked up to that 1 gram per day, and you do that until you overcome the situation, and then you taper down into a maintenance phase, which can be like roughly about 1 gram per week to maintain the results that you've gotten. Otherwise, if you just stop doing everything altogether, you're going reverse. So you want to maintain the results by doing roughly about 1 gram per week, and it could be like 100, 200, all the way up to 400 milligrams per day, kind of a thing. But that's what we found. And also, just so you know, those people that have what I call milder conditions. No condition that you have is mild to you, but things that are like sleep, pain, anxiety, and things like that. They don't need as much, okay, as you would to overcome that major condition, and they can get away with sometimes 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams per day just to overcome and maintain their condition. Which is really super cool for them. And then others, there are some people that they sort of understand what's going on, and they're healthy, but they don't want to get sick, or they don't want to go backwards, and they understand that the world is different and there's more toxins around, so they take it as preventative measures, and they would also do like 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams per day. So to recap, that full gram, the 1,000 milligrams per day, the full syringe, is meant just for people with the hardcore conditions, and it's meant for a short window of time, and then they go into a maintenance phase afterwards. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Our next question, and I do not want to butcher this name, so I'm just going to spell it out. It's TRITR-GK8BO. So yes, treat for great BO. Yeah. This individual asked, I watched an Israeli doctor speak about certain cannabinoids being isolated for specific cancers, but I think I prefer the FECO way for many of the same reasons you mentioned here. Can you elaborate more?
Okay, yeah. So what he's talking about is he watched a video where I talk about the whole of the plant being more beneficial than each of its components, and having a more beneficial or therapeutic effects on people and animals, as well. And there are doctors in Israel, other parts of the world as well, but a huge think tank is in Israel, and that's where the majority of cannabis research is being done, and what they quote unquote say is the most advanced cannabis research is done in Israel right now, and they are doing that, like trying to isolate cannabinoids. Like this cannabinoid helps this specific, disease, and this strain, helps with this specific, ailment or whatever. And what they're doing is they're basically using a medical-based approach, which we've seen, the way the world is today, this does not work, right? Mm-hmm. So they're not going about this for your health either. So they're using a medical-based approach by trying to have these single components help this single issue. When over here at Movida, we just try to get somebody's body to function properly so it could make itself healthy, and no matter what condition you have. Okay, the reason that they are trying to isolate cannabinoids and have them be for specific ailments is for a monetary purposes. So they isolate a specific cannabinoid. They'll do like some quote unquote studies, like fake studies, and then they'll make claims as to what benefit that cannabinoid has. And then what they do from there is cannabinoids, that's from a plant, and you can't patent at the USPTO, the Patent and Trademark Office. You can't patent things that occur in nature, but you can patent things that you create in the lab. So once they have determined through their fake studies that this cannabinoid helps this issue or this ailment, then they'll create a synthetic version of that cannabinoid in the lab. Then they will get a patent on that, and then they'll make billions of dollars from that patented synthetic cannabinoid. And they are useless at best and do major harm at worst. That make sense?
It does, and great question and great answer. Thank you. All right, so our last question for today, and this is from two individuals that are very active in the community and ask great questions. Gareth Beaton, 8414, and Ed Pelto. Is Sativa RSO good? What is the big problem with not having indica dominant? I think my cannabis that I have at the moment is a Sativa dominant hybrid.
Okay, that's a really, really good question, and it's one that I get often, and that people think that isn't really a big deal when in certain situations it really is. So the indica dominant and sativa dominant RSO, traditionally, like a true Rick Simpson oil is indica dominant, and that's one of the differences between FECO and RSO. If in order to be called RSO, it has to be indica dominant, basically. And there's a reason for that. And full extract cannabis oil, that could be a sativa, indica, whatever. It could be from a number of different solvents, etc. But as far as the sativa RSO, there are certain people that cannot have that, and I'll just get into that first, because it's super important. And this is what we found over the years, because we tested it out on different people that have these conditions, and it makes them actually worse. And so people with dementia or dementia-related kind of things, and then also autism. So with both of those conditions, there's, as the condition worsens, there's like violent outbursts that could happen, and the RSO has traditionally been known to help minimize that. Okay, but if you have a sativa dominant, the sativa is more like for people that are creative and think and want to get into stuff. So it can also worry people and give people anxiety if they're prone to that. The indica strains, they are more sedative and actually make you sleep and want to just sit on the couch and stuff like that. And that's what's good for healing, and that's what's good for people that are prone to violent outbursts. You want them to more relax and not get more creative into what they're doing and have more violent outbursts, right? Yeah. And that's what the sativa does for them. So it makes so sativa dominant RSO makes people with dementia and autism to have a worse time, makes their condition worse, where the actual indica dominant RSO has been shown, like through many different people, to make their condition better, the autism and dementia. Okay, and then when it comes to people that have a hardcore condition like a cancer and glaucoma and things like that, what I found over here at Movida and My Fit Life, we're working with thousands of people over the years, is that the indica dominant is the one that helps to overcome the condition. Now, once you overcome the condition, you can maintain the results by indica or sativa, depending on what condition it is, as long as it's not like dementia or autism or something like that. But if it was like glaucoma, like I have, then what I did was I did the indica dominant. I'm not sure if the sativa dominant would have worked, but for sure the indica dominant did for me. And then others that came to me that have tried RSO from other makers, that said, like, I've tried it, but it didn't work, but you seem to know what you're talking about, and you have so many success stories, I want to try your stuff. One of the things, besides the fact that the person that they got the oil from might not have known how to make the oil properly, they might have been using a sativa strain, and that might be one of the reasons why our oils work when other people's oils don't, because we use the proper starting material. People, it doesn't matter how good of an extraction process you have, or any other process you have, if you didn't start off with the right starting material, you can't you can't make it better if you don't have the right starting material. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Yes. So that sedative effect, like you mentioned before, it allows for massive healing, and when you have a hardcore condition, you need massive healing to happen, and that happens with the indica. Okay. So hopefully that all makes sense. But again, like if it was overcoming a condition like cancer or glaucoma, or even like a hardcore injury or surgery, that you're trying to just recover from more completely, then after you've recovered from whatever condition with the indica, high indica strains, then you may be able to do a sativa RSO to maintain the results. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Thank you. Al, I'm so impressed. One, with your answers, but also with the individuals writing these questions. So I do highly recommend, if you have a question and you want Al to answer it, please comment below, comment on one of our videos, and we will be looking through them and find the best questions for Al to answer. Nothing is too big or too small. And with that, that's everything on my end. Al, do you have anything you want to add?
There is one thing. I was looking through some comments the other day, and I saw a couple, like quite a few actually, but a couple stood out of some success stories in the comment section from our community, right? So I just wanted to share a couple of them, and one of them is actually from not the last one, with the one before, the question before that you just mentioned, and it's that at TRITR-GK8BO, and he says, for anyone with degenerative discs or any kind of chronic
Wow.
pain. Well, this medicine took it all away within 4 hours. Like, right? So he had chronic pain for ever, tried all kinds of stuff. And then he took the RSO, and he's one of those people where it just worked immediately. And then it kept on working because he's still part of our community. So he got this several months back, and he's still part of our community, continuing to take it, continuing to get better and better results. So super, super awesome, and congratulations with that.
Yes.
And there's one more I want to share too. It's from at an ocean away 6194, and he or she said, RSO is a game changer. I use it for sleep and sleep like a baby. I keep like 6 on hand every order so I don't run out. Okay. So this is a good example of, where you're not taking it just for cancer or just for glaucoma or just for some hardcore condition. Like it could help your everyday life, like little aches and pains that go along with aging or whatever, is living in the modern world, sleeping like a baby, getting that full night's sleep. Because, especially if you are using the Indica strain that is super sedative, then you can sleep all the way through and you just wake up just like, rested and, ready to take on the day. It's so super important. So that's why I say, this is not just something, it's not a medicine that you take to overcome these hardcore conditions. It's an essential nutrient that helps you to operate at the utmost optimal levels on a daily basis.
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so that concludes this episode of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. Be sure to leave any questions or comments below and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy this type of content. Reach out to support at myfitlife.net or schedule a complimentary call if you have questions about RSO or FECO, how to take it, or where to get it. This is Al Morenton.
And I'm Megan Hall.
And we are the hosts of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds. I hope you have a beautiful day.